r/AskReddit. Redditors who grew up with shady/criminal parents. What did your mom or dad teach you was okay to do that you later learned was illegal or seriously frowned upon? Serious. Please subscribe, leave a like, comment and share the video to help the channel. My blood father was a drug dealer and he often came home with some really nifty stuff. I later found out it was stuff he got from people who didn't have cash on them, but still wanted to buy. I think the thing I feel most guilty about was a Gamma Boy advance I was given that we'd either only have for a little while or have forever. When he said that, it was usually forever. It had a heap of games with it, and I went through and started new games on all of them, erasing the existing save files. Well, he took it back after about a month, so I guess whoever it was paid up, and I feel really sorry for their kid. Mummy or daddy was an addict and used their Gamma Boy advance as collateral, and when they got it back, all their saves were gone. I was only a kid at the time and didn't really know the context in which I was handed the thing, but I know it belonged to a kid, since there were quite a few young child learning game cartridges alongside Mario and Pokemon. If we were at home and they yelled pigs, we were to hide behind the couch and be silent. If we were in the car and they yelled pigs, we had to crawl into the floorboard and not move a muscle. I was kidnapped in grade 3 by my dad's supplier. He held us for 2 days. We had no idea. My sister and I met him before, lots of times. When he showed up at school and said our parents were on vacation and to go with him, we did. They had soda and Oreos and a puppy and a Sega Genesis, and it was the best weekend of my life. Found out 20 years later, when my mom was complaining about never having had a vacation in her life. I reminded her of that vacation, and she said, "You idiot, you were kidnapped." Oh, cool. I mean, I knew it was illegal, but probably growing all the cannabis when I was a kid. Dad was gonna die of cancer, so he wanted to leave us some money. It was like Dad Breaking Bad. Not my parents, but a friend's dad gave us some solid advice that I always remembered. Remember boys, don't break the law when you're breaking the law. It applies in so many ways. For example, don't run a stop sign when you've got weed in the car, or don't speed if your inspection is out of date, or don't get the police called for a noise complaint if you've had a beer while underage. He was a shady guy, but oddly wise in many ways. My mom and dad are trained artists and teachers, and they would frequently counterfeit things like parking permits, coupons, doctor's notes, etc. It was wild. Blow into breathalyzers so they could drive. My mom was a drug dealer. There are so many things I could list, but I'm on my phone, so just a few things off the top of my head. Smoking pot. When I was about 4, I chased my mom through the Woolworth's drug store screaming, "Mommy, mommy, you dropped your joint. Don't you want your joint?" She hurried faster, shushing me, and I got a big talking to that afternoon. Snorting coke. I was in the 2nd grade when I got sent to the principal's office for teaching my friends how to make lines with salt and use part of a milk straw to snort it. My mom was really pissed. Don't talk to cops or any straight people. I didn't know why at first, but I lived in terror of straight people. I got congratulations for making it through FBI questioning when I was probably 6 years old when they raided our land. SWAT teams are scary. Boobs are good for smuggling. Cleaning out stems and seeds is a fun summer job. Don't say anyone's name on the phone. Those are just a few things I immediately recall. Ooh, I forgot to add how every now and then people in our circle of friends would move far away for a while and change names, and we weren't ever allowed to call them by their old names. My mom also made us believe that morphine was an excellent pain reliever for all ages. My dad was a tow truck driver, and he would always bring me little presents as a kid that he got out of people's tow cars. As far as I knew, if someone knew their car was going to get towed, they took everything they wanted out of it, and the rest was fair game. My dad was investigated by the FBI for racketeering, but they were unable to press charges on him. He was also sued by a major financial entity for racketeering as well. Anyways, when I was a teenager, my dad had a lawsuit brought against him by multiple employees for unpaid overtime, and he ordered me to go through the boxes upstairs in a warehouse that we had to find all of their time cards. The storage area was a disaster. Papers everywhere. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find them. So I told my dad that it was no use. The time cards weren't there. My dad then yelled at me, telling me that he needed those time cards and said that all of these people were trying to rip him off, so if I had to just make up time cards for them so that they were working 40 hours a week with no overtime, but don't bother telling him about what I did to get the time cards when I had them. I just had to have them for him one way or the other. I didn't think much about the last bit until much later, but long story short, I ended up making time cards that he used for the case. He won. Realized several years later that my dad had used me for forgery, and when I confronted him about it, he just laughed and said that I was a minor at the time and nobody puts a minor in jail for a white collar crime. I've run into some of those employees since then, and when they accosted me for being his daughter and how they would want to punch my dad, or worse, if it was him they ran into, I've always confessed this to them. Ironically enough, they have all said that they would punch him on my behalf too, because the fact that he used his own daughter pissed them off even more. And about the racketeering thing, he loved laughing about that and calling himself a don. When I was going to take over the business several years later after the forgery bit, his oldest employees gave me loyalty oaths. I ran like hell. My dad absolutely was a racketeer. My boyfriend always talks about the stories of his dad having friends everywhere. Family would talk about how his now late father had friends no matter where he went in the city and how great that was. And no matter where they stopped he would randomly know someone there. Then as an adult he realized that his dad just had drug dealers everywhere and that's who he was always seeing. Shoplifting for the most part. One mean, like she never made us do it, but she didn't hide what she was doing either. She's the reason model homes have cameras now, lol. My dad stole a few things in a sneaky way, so my brother and I would have won each. In one instance, for example, he bought a Gamma Boy game. He brought it back to the car, removed the cartridge, and took it back into the store saying the case was empty. He did the same thing with those Pikachu Tamagotchi things. I think his biggest steal was a PlayStation 2. He actually did purchase one. My mum went in and picked it up. But when leaving the store, the door person didn't tear the receipt. So, my dad took the receipt back in, picked up another PS2, stuck the receipt on it and walked out. The door person tore the receipt this time, but obviously didn't pay attention to the time of sale. Dad also ran a huge backroad business of installing chips in PlayStations so they could play copied games. He would rent games, burn a copy, then sell copies to other people. We had a whole library and catalog of copied games and Dad had quite a few customers. Looking back I see how dodgy it was and why he told me not to tell too many people about it. My family did a lot of petty, trashy crime, shoplifting, theft, domestic assault, drugs, etc. I thought it was normal for adults to just kinda go to jail every few years for a day or two until I was 10. Now, my stepdaddy's out of my life. My mom is too old/ill to do anything particularly bad, and my dad may have helped finance a district attorney's election, which has saved him mountains in legal fees for himself and the hookers he frequents. I don't know, and probably will never know, what my parents did. However, we would leave the house at night time and go drive through certain parks. Occasionally my parents would panic and tell us to hide. We had to crawl onto the floorboard in the back of a tiny book. My dad came home with injuries sometimes and my mom always said he fell. And finally, in that particular town, they hated the cops. They claimed they were all corrupt. Maybe they were, IDK. My dad was a mechanic. The ones that stick out was when he would charge for a new replacement part and then go to the local junkyard and get the part from there. If the customer asked up front he would be honest and offer the two options. Junkyard part equals cheap, but likely reliable, or new equals expensive and only parts warranty. If they didn't ask most of the time it was a junkyard part. Rarely got in trouble or called out since his prices were a fraction of regular shops. Oh, I guess the other main shady part was that he wasn't a legit certified mechanic and most business was cash/under the table. His apprentice is now my mechanic, and he learned from my dad's mistakes. He provides receipts, boxes, and shows me where he installed the new part and it's always shiny and new, minus obvious grease handling / installation marks. Drugs. I had no idea they were illegal until I was a lot older than I should have been to understand they are illegal. My father was a grower and distributes to a well-known MC he was a part of. We grew up running around pot fields. I slept on a couch most of my childhood because all the rooms had been converted in hydroponic setups. Our roof space was converted into storage, where it was garbage bags of weed, around 100 to 150 SQM, all stacked on top of each other. Other stupid shit too. Apparently owning unregistered firearms is illegal. You need a driver's license to drive a vehicle. Please subscribe, leave a like, comment and share the video to help the channel.